Hello, I'm Russell Brand. I'm host of the Trews. I'm here with George Monbiot. Have I said it right?
No.
Monbiot.
Monbiot, yeah. God, I got there in the end.
We're talking about party funding and the death of representative politics. Why is it that all of us want stuff and that stuff never happens? We're told we've got democracy. Say we don't want things privatised. They are privatised anyway. So you're going to help us understand this, are you, George?
Well, I'm going to try. Basically the idea is that we live in what's called a democracy but is owned effectively by the people who provide the money. And we have this completely unreformed political funding system. So basically, you can vote, you can protest, you can do all the things which in an ordinary representative democracy you do, but nothing ever happens. Nothing changes in that right direction, or it does with extreme difficulty, because basically the parties are beholden to the people who are providing them with their election funding.
Who should pay for our politics? For days, Labour's been criticised for taking cash from the trade unions. But today, Ed Miliband turned his fire on the Conservatives, claiming they'd received millions from city bankers. The result was a wall of noise.
As soon as I see, this chamber, I start to think, this don't look like... I once was taking acid and I looked at when it first came on the telly and I thought, this don't look like how things should be run.
I want party funding reform. He doesn't. I'm proud that we have links with ordinary working people. He's bankrolled by a few millionaires. The party of the people, the party of privilege.
The fact is that what is going on in there is not actually where power happens. That's just pantomime. That's
it is a pantomime. That's what it looks like and sounds like one.
And it's a whole lot of shouting, boorish idiots, some of whom do possess some handle on power, but the real work goes on elsewhere.
So this is a farce. The real stuff happens elsewhere in rooms, in relationship, sort of shady cabals.
It's the lobbying. And particularly it is the handing over of money. Now there are people who are giving hundreds of thousands of pounds, particularly to the Tory party. They're bankers, they're hedge fund managers, they're oligarchs doing it through PR companies. I mean, there's Russian oligarchs who appear to be giving money to PR companies, lobbying companies, who are then giving it to the government. You know you are beholden to those people. You can't win an election without them. You need their millions if you're going to win the next election. And so everything you do, they're in the back of your mind.
So money should be taken out of politics.
In the budget, the Chancellor gave hedge funds a £145 million tax cut. Can the Prime Minister tell us, was it just a coincidence?
I just don't want my life run by this. I think get money out of politics and get this out of running things.
Well, I mean, the problem is that, even he's compromised. They're all compromised by the funding system.
I am willing, as I've said before, to have a £5,000 limit on donations from trade unions, businesses and individuals. Is he willing to do that?
But you see, even a £5,000 limit. I mean, most people in the country could never... I mean, if they had £5,000, they would not give it to a political
got
party.
£5,000. Could I give it to a cunt?
The last cause you'd give it to. But of course, if you're a business, if you've got millions of pounds, £5,000 is nothing. So even that's too much. So Miliband won't bite the bullet on this. What he's proposing is pathetic. It's just pathetic. It hardly touches the problem, because actually you've just got to get all the money out of it. You've got to get all the corporate money, all the private money out of it, except for what almost everyone can afford, which would be like a 30 quid membership fee. That's the only private money which should be going into it.
So you think this is a sort of a functional idea that we could popularise and push for, and that would radically transform politics, because the influence of money is one of the most corrosive and corrupt aspects of our modern political landscape?
It would drag them away from the billionaires and from the corporations, but at the same time, it would force them to reconnect with the people who ought to be their party members. But the only way that they could then survive at the next election is to have as many members as possible. So they've got to then change their policies so that they actually appeal to the ordinary people rather than to big business.
But Labour was still the party of the unions, the Prime Minister said, and the loosening of financial links changed nothing.
Will the unions still have the biggest vote at the conference? Yes. Will they still be able to determine the party's policy? Yes. Will they still have the decisive vote in voting for the Labour leader? Yes.
I don't like him growling like that. Now I've been given a window into what he's like the moment before he ejaculates.
That is the fact. They own you, lock, stock and block vote.
He gets so heated about this. You'd never see him that heated in other circumstances. You know, normally he goes around with it sort of covered in Vaseline and completely calm. The rest of his face scarcely moves, but look, he's gone red. He's furious. There's steam emanating.
Why do you think he's so
from him.
incensed?
Because this is the heart of it. Because it touches the most sensitive spot in the whole of political life, which is where the money is coming from and who's actually pulling the strings.
Money in politics is the perineum of British politics. It is the delicate hinterland between the genitals and the anus. And when you touch David Cameron there, he goes very red.
So how are the parties funded? Over the last year, the Tories received donations of £13 million, more than £1 million from one city banker alone. Labour got more than £12 million, two-thirds of which came from the unions. The Lib Dems got 2.7 million.
When something like this emerges, George, typically, they talk about it, air it for a while, and then find ways of seeming to have moved, but actually have done nothing, where there are sort of loopholes and backdoors where people can continue to enforce the same political dynamic. Is that true?
It's been going on for decades, for over a century. You know, and they keep having the commissions and reports and investigations into what needs to be done. And nothing changes.
Remember when you told me about that TTIP had previously been proposed under some other name? It makes you realise, it's just some sort of cyclical mechanism, and this is just an echo chamber of nothingness.
The same corrupt forces which have operated in politics are still here. In what is meant to be a democracy, and you know the democratic will of the people just does not get represented in this place.
There is a big difference between donations to the Conservative Party and donations to the Labour Party.
He's so posh, he shouldn't be allowed to be on the telly. It's my Labour Party. Like, in his anger, he's forgotten to try and be normal.
Donations to the Labour Party, by votes at your conference, by candidates and MPs in this House, and pay for the votes that gave him his job. They paid their money, they bought their votes, they put him in his place, and that hasn't changed a thing.
So what should we do in conclusion, George?
Well, we just, you know, until we grasp this, until we actually start getting really as angry as he's getting, but the other way round, about the funding system, nothing in politics is going to change, because it will continue to be bought. It will just, we can go out in our millions to protest, we can make the case for all the policies that we want, but while the big guys have still got their hands on the purse strings, they will play these people like puppets.
Where should we go to learn more about this issue in this country?
Unlock democracy would be where I'd start.
That's where we should go, because as long as the political process is ultimately controlled by donations and other aspects of financial and corporate relationships between politicians, we have no power.
No.
That is some true news.
Nose is a tool that is abused to fool you and to leave you scared and confused. Trews is like the nose. If the nose was true, I want some Trews. Let's have some Trews.